Hey guys, welcome back. This is video two in the Phantom Dust Tag Team Tournament video series. We're going to be talking about some more predictions and also our results from round one. This is Nathan Zero. I'm here with Bragan and Gagnoon. Why don't you guys go ahead and say hi?
Hi, I'm Dallin Mueller, also known as Bragan in the Xbox community.
This is Guinan, also Jacob, also 3-0ing Dallin in the next series. Oh, I'm
Wait a
sorry. Was
second.
that for
That's
later?
how it's pronounced, as Guinan?
It doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm supposed to use that prediction now, right?
Yeah,
Oh boy.
he's so ready to 3-0 me, he can't even get his name straight. He's really ready.
So, as we said, round one was completed. I'm proud to say round one was completed 2 full days before the deadline, which is absolutely unprecedented. The toughest thing about running these tournaments historically has been getting everyone to schedule and actually play their matches. And especially now, it takes 4 people to play each one of these. It's all 2-on-2, and so it's a fair amount of scheduling involved to get everybody in one place to get the games played. And so I'm really proud of everybody actually getting that done. 14 teams, and everybody was able to get their matches in.
That is actually really impressive. Whenever
amazing.
we did the 1v1 tournament, we had 2 people who had to have extended deadlines, 2 replays because they didn't follow the rules correctly, and we had 2 dropouts.
Yeah.
And when
Well, we
you
did have
compare
some
this to-
dropouts. We did end up.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean that's all. We did have some dropouts, but we were able to get people to slot right in and replace them. And of course, the rules allow for one replace, well, as many replacements as necessary prior to the start of round one being played. After that, you are locked in with that partner, so you don't want to frivolously sign up with someone who's a train wreck.
Right. And
That's true. We had 1 full team drop and we had a player drop.
2 players. 2 players. The other one was Ordeware, however that name is pronounced.
Well, that was before the draws had even happened.
It was before the draw. Yeah, exactly. But there were three discrete dropouts.
and if you're a viewer and you're comparing this to other games and you're thinking like, well, what? They never have problems scheduling when I watch Counter-Strike or League of Legends. You got to remember that that's their job. We have lives and jobs. We're playing this as a hobby beyond that. So the fact that people have that dedication, like, that's the cool part about this.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
I
it's
think we
true.
all have lives, but only some of us have jobs.
Fair.
So round 2 is underway, and so we're going to be talking about our predictions for round 2. The matchups are all set, and everyone's the scheduling has begun. No matches have been played for round 2 yet, but before we start with that, I guess there's just no getting around the fact that we're going to need to talk about Bragan's bafflingly flawless prediction of how the first round would play out. If you listen to the first video in the series where Bragan did a breakdown of all the matchups, if I remember correctly, nailed every single matchup, not just in terms of the outcome, but also the duration of the match. You actually called all the series lengths, right?
I got 6 of the series right, and I got 5 of the series on match score. So there was 2 series that I didn't get the match score, and there was 1 series that I predicted incorrectly. But
Which one did you get
those
wrong?
were the last 2 series to be played as well. So at one point I was
so
5
you're
and
5 and
0.
0.
Like I was hot. I was hot for about a good 5 matches straight.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the post you had on the forums that goes in order, the standings thread. So do you want to just start in the order from left to right on that?
And for our viewers, this will be linked in
yeah.
the comment below, so just check it out.
Yeah, so
Because that'll kind of put us towards the matchups coming up too. Because we'll start with the 3-0 matchups and then move towards
That's
the
exactly right.
3 and 2s.
Yeah. So just to quickly talk about these 2 tables, I created these. They're just both made in Excel, and essentially it's not easy to show like a robust linear breakdown of how everybody's doing in Swiss. It's sort of by its nature, it's fundamentally an ELO based system, and so they're a lot of variables, and with only 1 round completed, it's not too bad. But it can get hairy, in 2 or 3 rounds pretty quickly, even with just 14 teams. So the first thing I did was a rank breakdown based on how everyone performed in their round. So there's just like a 1st through 14th list. And it's a pretty traditional looking, it shows everyone's record on each level. And I've got color-coded. I colored red any band levels for a given series. So that kind of speaks for itself. The other one is a what they would call a dominance hierarchy map, which is it's kind of like a flow chart essentially that just shows who played whom, and it sort of indicates, visually what the outcome of that match was. The further apart the two teams are, the more the more thorough the beating was. Such that the teams on the left were 3-0 sweeps, and the teams on the far right were 3-2 nail biters. So with that breakdown, I think we can talk about.
Yeah, I was thinking actually it might be better to. Yeah, I was gonna say actually it might be better to just run through the standings real quick,
okay.
And then we go through the matchups. I'll go ahead and run through the standings. So we have a 4-way tie for first place right now. Probably the number one out of the tie was going to be Doomsday and Roaming Ronin. And then the other three teams tied for that first spot are Gotrix and Silent 79, myself, Bragan123, and PDDCM, as well as Murder Mastodon and yours truly over here, Reborn Guinan. I was going to say next to me, but he's not next to me.
Not quite.
After that, we have in a lonely 5th place, nobody else tied for that position. They were the only team to go 3-1, is Nathan Zero, our other host here, and his partner, the Wolf. Following that, we have a tie for 6th between Xanxus and Zexus, as well as Jokers and Sadistic Soul. Following up teams in the latter half who did not win in the first round, we have a tie for 8th place with Esper 51 and Evolution, as well as Ghost and the Multitude. In 10th, all lonesome, is I Will Rider and Mr. Math 101. And then tied for last place, we have 4 teams. These are the teams that got swept by the first place teams, which is Monkey 2051, Silver Saint, Sandal, Filthy Knigget, Mimic and Mesrath, and Dwayne and Jay.
Yep.
And that said, I guess, like we said before, we'll move from left to right on the second chart we have here, and that would put my match first. Bragan and Davio versus Monkey and Saint.
Yeah, and
so why don't you just walk us quickly through that matchup? Like, how did that go for you?
Sure, I guess, I can introduce it. Just try and be nice and political about this. It was clean, and it wasn't pretty. Like, it really didn't go very well for them. On the first map, we ran a deck where Davio basically ended up with some really big buffs, and then I doppelganged, and we just ran him over. It was real quick. The second match, and that was on Palace. The second match, because we banned Highway and they banned Panorama, ended up on City. And on City, they ran double Aura Cannon, and we just ran Vibration. Again, it was really clean. It was really quick. Third match was on Refinery, and that one was also... we played a lot slower this time. I was running a deck that was more harass-like, and they ran a Bravery decision on Silver Saint, and I had some pops, some capsule poppers. Towards the end, he brought himself down really low in capsules, all on his own. He got down to like 4, all by himself. And so Davio, which is PDDCM, ran over, Diabolical Tricked one of his capsules, and then I just popped a Violent Change, and we cornered Monkey, and that was it. It was, again, slower, but a very clean match. Like, there wasn't really any momentum shifts.
Which one of you banned which map, by the way?
We banned Highway, they banned Panorama.
Okay, all right.
Interesting. All right. Well, and the next series is actually, and it's fun, just as a thought on that, it is funny. I feel as though I never remember wins as clearly as losses. And there's probably some, like, evolutionary value in that sort of thing where, the wins just kind of slide off, but like the losses, you're like, oh man, why did I do everything I did to make that not be a win?
Well, and before we move on to the next match, too, I would like to just remind everyone that our friend here, Nathan Foley, predicted me to lose this matchup in brutal fashion.
I did.
I'm going to have to eat crow later on in this podcast, but I just want to make sure he does, too.
Yeah, I mean, Monkey and Silver are a great team. And it was. I knew it was going to be a solid matchup, but I did think they were going to take it. So yeah, you proved me wrong authoritatively.
Yeah.
Authoritatively.
In fairness, like Davio, PD, he's gone under the radar since he's come back. He's a really busy guy, so he's got on and played some really solid games, but we don't see him a lot, so it's hard to tell where he was going to come out, and obviously came out well.
Actually, that's a great point, and it's funny you should mention that because I actually played a couple games with him. Was it last night or the night before? I just played with him, and he had I don't remember who it was, but he had a weak partner. It was just a pickup guy against me and Wolf, and he did really well. He played gangbusters. I mean, I think we played 9 games, and they actually had a winning record against us with a straight up pickup guy because he was sitting in the room already when Davio arrived. So yeah, that was an eye opener. He could really play.
Yeah, he whenever he first came back to Baroness, he was pretty rusty and he didn't have a whole lot of play time. But getting ready for the tournament, I would say Davio stepped it up a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
So going on the list, is it mine next then? I'm going.
Yeah, it would be Murder Mastodon, Reborn,
okay, cool.
Guinan.
So,
Sorry.
yeah.
Murder Mastodon and Guinan versus Dwayne and Jay.
Right. So Dwayne was our host last time. He'll probably be on around later for some more beautiful, colorful commentary. This match is interesting because it was recorded from both directions, so you can hear commentary of both teams. If you haven't, please do. They were good matches. It was 3-0, but there were definitely opportunities where it could have swung. We banned the first 2 maps, so we started Panorama, then City, then Refinery. Panorama, we threw out a pretty heavy ricochet laser, which there are mixed feelings about, but while that was both oppressive, it was also became close. There was a really good judge of Ares that brought it down, but ricochet laser is pretty oppressive when it wants to be, and it was.
Yeah, if I remember that match correctly, you were pretty close to losing that one.
Yeah, I mean,
at one point, it was a pretty close match.
Yeah, we had Murder died to combos of, I think it was Flamesword, Willow, Rian, just hitting back to back, and I was going for the pickup run, but decided to just snipe them, and ended up taking them both down before they could do anything to retaliate.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty remarkable pair of videos to watch. In particular, the first match, because it's a true nail biter. It's a really, really tight game, and you guys were preternaturally calm during that series, during that game in particular, where you even say at one point, 3 minutes or so into the game, and things are looking real. I'm actually looking at the video thinking to myself, man, this looks bad. And you're like, no, we got this. And I'm thinking wow, you are far more confident than I am in your ability to take this match. And of course you said that live, in the game. And then it's funny, listening to them, they play more, I think, the way I do, which is kind of amped up and emotional on it. And yeah, definitely, you can hear that constriction as the game goes along of oh man, the stakes are higher, and I think they did have it at one point. I really do think that they had a clear window to shut it down, and couldn't quite close it down, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's a great series.
Yeah, that game had small mistakes on both ends. There were definitely times where no one straight up threw the match, but there were times where we swung the momentum by obviously messing up. One of them is he accidentally hit his partner in a pickup run. I don't think it would have been game, but it was close, So then we go to City, and this is actually the best testament to what the communication shows. On the surface, it looks like they buffed, and they both played cartwheelers. We played an Arsenal that took advantage. We had crawlers. We had Dazzle. But it actually came down to the manipulation of their stats. There was a ton of armor swatch going on. There was a ton of Tokyo or Murder. He actually couldn't see for some reason, game bug, the stats that Jay had, I believe. I think they're on Jay, but you can see in the video.
Yeah, I wondered about that because he says something about not being able to see what the buffs are, and I was unsure why that would be the case.
I don't know, but I mean I do believe him, and so I'm communicating to him whether it's positive or negative, and he ends up with we Armoros his power, so he has like friendships that went negative, and then he gets positive speed, and he goes between plus power minus speed and reversed over and over again, and this actually is the momentum of the match where we decide like at some points I didn't have a defense, so he lowered his power so I wouldn't take as much damage because he was like knifing me or flame sorting me for like a good amount. It wasn't very fun. But then we slowed him down so he couldn't do a pickup run.
Exactly, and I think that it was interesting that you did flip flop him a couple more times, and we're even discussing whether or not it was better with the speed or the damage up. It's an interesting question, but I think for my money, most of the time I would even consider like a single point, like a 1-to-1 comparison of speed versus damage. The speed is almost always superior. Like even if like +2 speed, I think has more value than +2 damage. As much more difficult as it is to get those +2 damage. Just because of things like corpse runs and also the ability to just like stay on top of people, make it so they can never really slip away from you.
Yeah, and that's what it came to.
I think.
And obviously, it wasn't all our choice because Dwayne also had an Armoros watch, so like it was being thrown in both directions, which was kind of funny and awkward.
Yeah, and it was a commanding win. I mean, it's certainly it was the least contested match of the series.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting because it really did come down to just stat manipulation.
Mm-hmm. And I think, like, you'd say, well, it was about who had what skill, but really, like, we both had Armoros watch. It was about the strategy and communication. Like, that was what was being showcased.
Yep.
And what was the last match again?
Refinery. So on Refinery, they're playing Memory Lapse. I got Vibration. And I get a really slow Vibration, right? This one actually ends up starting off really bad for me. Murder pulls a lot of weight. He's, throwing off a lot of attacks. He's the one dealing most of the damage. I'm actually doing runs to pick up their Memory Lapses because I need it for Aura for Vibration because I'm so low. And we're getting pot-shotted by a lot of Rians, and I'm just kind of taking it. So, like, we have low life totals, but they don't have a lot of pressure to kill. So we're not in a good place, but we're not likely to lose. So it was just that awkward feeling for a while. Then I finally get Vibration. We've gone through like 4 Memory Lapses, so they're unlikely to put another one down. I have a Photon Barrier, a Vibe Laser. They've got Reincarnation. So this is the kind of the match we're getting. And it's funny because Murder, I think it's in the video, or maybe just after, he's like, I want you to play Vibration because you're so solid at manual-aiming those lasers. And I
missed
so many times. I get the last one. The last one is for the game, and I do get it. I get the game winning.
I didn't realize that was yours that landed there. I did see him die, but I thought it was a shot from the side.
It might have been. It's been.
Yeah, you are one of the scarier people to face in Melee when you've got Vibration laser.
I did like
Tokyo was not wrong. It just wasn't showcased very well in that game or the series. But yes, you are generally a very dangerous player with Vibration laser.
I did chunk him with the blaster to get him low so that the laser was lethal. So I don't think it was a high chance of losing there. Like, the first match was closer, as in more opportunities for us to lose the game. But there was definitely a lot of, like, damage going in both directions. And for that, it was, like, high stakes combat. But, yeah, so it was a pretty good series despite being a 3-0.
Right, yeah. Well, and like Gagnon said in the beginning, they're both sides of that matchup were recorded, so it's kind of cool. You can go through and see how each team was communicating during those respective matches. The third series from the left is Gotrix Silent, who was one of our replacement players, against Sandal Enk, which is the old Collected Dust player who maintained the FAQs, and Filthy Knigget. That was also a 3-0 sweep. And that, there's not really much to say about it. It wasn't a real surprising outcome. Gotrix and Silent are pretty strong players. Sandal Enk and Knigget are also solid players, but are a little bit newer to the competitive scene. And so, I don't think anyone was surprised by that outcome, right?
That's actually the opposite of what I predicted. So that is where I did prediction wrong. Yeah, and
a couple of
if you listen to Gotrix's videos too, he literally calls me out in it too, and he's like,
they played really slow.
Yeah, he has some colorful things to say about me.
Yeah.
I think
they did. They played really solid from the matches I saw. From what I remember, they played Highway round 1, was pretty much just laser on laser. It was like that was probably the closest match. After that, they played Panorama, and it was basically the Gotrix our backflow show, and he just kept hitting them left and right for 7 and 8 and 9 damage with our backflow. Eventually, took him down.
Some really good.
And then on Refinery, Gotrix showed up with a triple Dance of Moths arsenal, which I thought was rather ridiculous. Like, I sent him a message afterwards while I'm watching it. I'm like, "Hi, my name is Cody Carlman. This is 3 Dance of Moth arsenal, and this is Jackass." You know, it's just ridiculous. But thankfully, in that match, despite the very odd arsenal, I think he was going for a combo specifically with other ranged abilities with the Dance of Moths, but didn't really ever become relevant. But Silent was hitting like these 9 and 10 damage Psycho Spears and Gravity Presses, and basically just ran them into the ground.
Yeah, those chunks. You know, it's interesting. There's a whole. I think there's a whole conversation to be had, although I don't want to have it right now, about what are the most valuable increments of damage in this game. You know, you start with 20 health, and it's a conversation I've had with the Wolf many times about like the difference between doing 5 points of damage, let's say, and 4, or more crucially 4 and 3. You know, because if you're running around with flame swords and you do a rush and you take the team completely down using those flame swords, you're landing 7 shots on each of them. If you can get 1 heat down, it's 5. And there's a huge difference in my mind between landing 5 shots on a person before the other can get set up and 7.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
if I were to say the best damage breakpoints, I'd say 4 and 8, or excuse me, 4 and 10.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I've tried to do builds, you know, utilizing things like Backdraft Bullet, so you can get a 5-pointer onto that if you're using Tiger Strength with it, and something else that would be doing 3, whatever that might be. If you can land the combo, you're doing 10, so it just takes 2 takedowns to end, you know, to take someone out of the game. And for that reason, I'm always a little uncomfortable with Psycho Spear and Gravity Press, in particular because I don't think that 8 points is a great, you know, bang for buck. You know, obviously it's a nice big chunk, but if it's not a game ender, you know, I'm always kind
of thinking to myself, you can't get it there with the Tiger Strength, or like in their match, he had 2 heats on and then he got dozed, so he was at 18 damage combo.
Well, and that's fair. Actually, a Tiger Strength with the Psycho Spear, now that is a 10-pointer, and I do like it again. So
well, he had 2 heats on that match. He got dozed at one point, so he was only +1, but he did have 2 heats on.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yep. So the 4th match is Doom Ronin versus Mimic and Mesrath. As I'm sure most of the people listening to these videos know, Doom is considered the best player in the game by most people. It's no surprise that, again, that was a sweep. Although, again, Mimic and Mesrath are a solid team. And in true Doom fashion, we get absolutely no information about this matchup except that it was a sweep. It was like a 7-word
today.
Did you? Okay, well then great. Give us a little feedback, because I'd love to know.
Ronin is actually the latter half of this video that I'm like voiceovering over. I was playing with Ronin some tag games.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't get a lot of perspective of exactly what happened in game, which I think they're keeping kind of close to the chest. But I did get some about like the logistics of it. Apparently, they were really scared they weren't going to be able to schedule this. Ronin had some family things where he's like, "Are you serious? I need to play my games." And they're like, "It's just games." And he's like, "No." But apparently Doom was super set to play that day. And so he made it work because Doom wanted to play right then. And he just describes Doom as, let me see if I can get the words right. I believe he says he's always in tryhard mode. And it comes through, obviously. Like, he's always giving 100%, where sometimes we play silly arsenals or, you know, aren't paying attention. He's always. And so the tournament was just what he would expect from their practice games. And I don't think he didn't have anything outstanding to say about Mimic and Mesrath, so I don't think anything too flashy happened. I think it was a couple of quick beatdowns.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise. None of us, I think, were eager to catch Doom in the second round. The next series was mine and Wolf's series, which we won 3-1. We did have a loss. decided to ban Highway, or I'm sorry, I said Highway. We decided to ban City, which was perhaps a little bit of a surprise to our opponents, since that was one of our, the levels where we have a primary match deck, which you guys both know. But we, in our practice rounds and some of our testing, we had found that actually to be one of our least reliable levels, and so we went ahead and cut it. Didn't have too much of a scouting report on these guys, so just decided to do that as a default. They took Sign, and we won Palace. We lucked out and got a really nice kind of rush start. They were using Math, it seemed like, was just running a straight Silver Bullet build. So he opened with, I think, three purples in hand, and they turned out to be like, I don't remember exactly, but it was something like Turbulence, Return to Nature, or Crush, or something. You know what I mean? Like, it was just a classic array of Silver Bullet skills. Will was on Dance of Death using Mephisto, so he got set up very quickly. They were both very defense heavy. The game was very nearly over when they hung a Chaos, which kind of froze both me and the Wolf for a while because we were on low-cost skills. But we were able to close it out without taking the thing down. It actually ended up being quite a close game that I think we were both a hit from death, and it was a good match. I was very disappointed. I did try to record them, and the DVR function failed on my Xbox on 3 of the 5 matches, or I'm sorry, 2 of the 4 matches. Second game was Highway. As a top secret build we used. Some new tech, which cannot be discussed here. We used just kind of a classic buff, like combo arsenal, and it went pretty well. I think they may have been on the same 2 decks, possibly. It was a very kind of similar type of game, although they never put an environmental down that time. Panorama we lost, which just it was Wolf had a catastrophic draw. He did a pretty good job of tearing through the build, trying to get to something. I actually had a really good draw, but it didn't. And I do have that one recorded, so that video will be going up. And once again, it was fucking Chaos and sword rushing. So, Math dropped a Chaos and just came for me, and there was really no answer. And then Will, once again, on his Dance of Death, blew me up to end the game on a 14-point hit from like 12 hit points. I was actually in pretty good shape and not particularly concerned about the corpse run. I just got crushed by one of those. And then Refinery we won using the classic, confused gravity combo that we like. Nothing special, nothing interesting. It was a scramble, but we got into a situation where we had them dying back to back. They made 2 successful long corpse runs, but both of them were like with us just harrying them the whole way. And so right as they would get the other guy up, they would die. And now that guy was making a long trip across the map. So it took a while, but we weren't close to time or anything. And that was a pretty solid win. So, we won the series.
Yeah, I actually talked to Math a little bit, and I know that Will accidentally posted a few things public. I know both of them were rather upset over the results of that match.
Yeah. Yeah.
Math talks to me quite a bit, actually. Yeah. And he was saying that
losing, so
yeah. Well, I know both of them were really on the train with we shouldn't have lost that set. We shouldn't have lost that set. So
yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see if I think at the very least I think Math is very aware of where their team is lacking right now. And I think most people, and this isn't to throw any shade on a particular player or anything, but I think most of the teams in this tournament know the buttons to push, and that's exactly what Math told me you guys did, is that there's a weak link on the team, and you guys know how to attack it.
That's a fair assessment, I would say. Yeah.
And I think just about any team facing them in the tournament is going to do the same.
Yeah.
I realized this. I wasn't really getting this from the data before, but I've talked to a lot of people. And by the time we've got to your matches, I realized that there's something that I want people to keep an eye on. Panorama is a turning point in this tournament so far. We see that Will and Math stole a game from Nathan and Wolf. Esper and Evolution stole a game from Zexus and Xanis here. Ghost and
they stole 2 games.
Well, I'm saying on Panorama. Ghost and Moto lost on Panorama. A lot of teams that were set to take it didn't take this map seriously enough, I think, because people don't like playing in a casual play, respectably, because it's a small map. There's some really degenerate things going on, but I feel like there's some people underprepared for that. And I mean, like,
I think that's a good observation. I'll tell you this, and I'm not afraid to admit it was on our short list for bans. It was something we talked about, only because it's a very high variance level, and we felt confident going into the series. So it's the type of thing that, like, if I'm playing Doom, I'm maybe happy to have Panorama, because it is high variance.
Yeah, we were basically inches away from banning it ourselves, and then Monkey banned Panorama, so we were like, oh, great, we get 2 bans in. Awesome.
When you think about it, like, if it's Highway, I'm like, what are you preparing for in Highway? Lasers. And, on Pano, you actually have a lot of close range attacks, but also a high amount of, like, you've got your go through wall skills, whether that's Scream of Evil, whether that's Ricochet Laser, whether that's Particle Mortar, or whatever. And
I feel like Panorama mostly just evolves into the 3 strategies. It's either some form of Dance of Death, or Ricochet Laser, or, like a Scream of Evil, Agonies of Death.
But those are all defended in such different ways that it's actually, like, a very careful balance on how to handle it.
Yeah, I don't. The ecosystem of decks is not terribly dysfunctional in Panorama, but it is true that something like, I would even argue that, like, a third of the skills in the game are functionally useless there. There's no reason to bring any laser to Panorama under any circumstances. A lot of the environmentals don't make as much of an impact because they're so much easier to get to generally. So I think that it's an oddball level for sure. Yeah. So the next series is. Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, that next series was Xanxus and Zexus versus Evolution and Esper 51, and this was a 5-game series, which was actually what I predicted previously, is that it was going to be a really close match. I think I'm gonna talk about this a little bit more later, because I want to talk more about Xanxus and Zexus and some of the other newer teams, but I think it was really interesting to see that we did see some of that potential synergy play out between Evolution and Esper 51, having the cerebral mind with the big setups and a really high mechanical player who's always constantly in your face with some of the fastest rush decks out there right now. And we did see that this series. They did quite well. It was a 3-2 series. Even the last match wasn't, horribly one-sided. I believe Evolution and Esper 51 picked up wins on Panorama and City. They lost on Highway, Lane, and Sign. I'm just gonna read some of their account. Case in
point right there. It's the 2 highest variance levels, I would say, being Panorama and City, are the 2 that they won on, for better or worse.
Yeah. Well, City, they came in with a pretty nasty combo. I actually helped Evolution, theorize this one. It's nothing horribly out of the new, that nobody's ever seen before, but it was a still moment, disintegrate kind of arsenal. With the still moment, Esper 51 also ran some, like, Psycho Spears and Gravity Presses with it as well, because they were up against double cartwheelers.
It's funny, he came to me because, Evolution was like, I know these guys are really good. I don't know if I want to take them head on. You're a cartwheeler. What would suck for you to run into? And he had these conversations with me, like, what would be hard or impossible to get around? And I said, most cartwheelers are probably going to get caught by still moment disintegrate. Like, it's not impossible, but and it happened.
Yeah. I guess Guinan also helped them put it together. They did it. They tore them apart. According to his account there, it was a very easy win on City when they did that. They hit him with, like, 3 still moments and, like, 2 disintegrates and, like, a celestial ship. Apparently, it was brutal.
Here's an interesting color comment on that, which is you guys know, I love janky builds like that, and the Wolf and I have experimented with a lot of them and had success with some of them too. Combo builds that are really more about shutting down your opponent's options rather than beating them face to face. I have often found in series for tournaments that if we win via a build like that, like a straight up just suffocation build, that is not really an engaged build, but is more of a cerebral, you got to put the pieces together during the thing and just stay alive long enough to make it so they can't win anymore. I struggle coming into the following game if I'm back on sort of a vanilla build. it's hard to like shift gears again back into video game mode rather than chess mode, and then be as effective in the following game as a result of that. So it's something that it's actually something Wolf and I have talked about with respect to which of the janky builds we would use in competition, if any, and it's something I'm always kind of conscious of. So I wonder if that may have had a little bit of an impact on them too. If that is a universal experience.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'll be wanting to monitor myself on that one. At least based on his account, it says that Lane was a super close match after the city match. That was one of the ones that we didn't have a video for, so I can't say exactly how it went myself. But it says it was an ultra close match, and then they ended up dropping the last game on sign. Although it's worth pointing out, at one point they led the series 2-1 before they ended up losing the last two games. So it sounds like it was a very competitive series. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to see if Esper 51 and Evolution can make the cut into playoffs, because so far they've shown some remarkable synergy for a new team. Yeah.
And the final matchup is Joker's 2099 and Sadistic Soul against Ghost and Multitude. This is a huge upset because not only are Ghost and Multitude really excellent players, but Jokers and Sadistic are just weak. I mean, frankly, I can't imagine them winning in round 2. I assure you that they will find themselves in an 0-3 hole and back where they belong in the middle of the bracket.
You guys hear that? Prove me wrong.
See, what he's going for here is he's playing against Jokers and Sadistic Soul, so he's laying it on a little thick right here. Jokers and Sadistic Soul were a solid team, and if people remember from the first podcast, I actually predicted them to win this matchup.
They have a lot of synergy.
Partly because Ghost and Multitude, they've got synergy. They're brothers. They played together forever. And Ghost and Multitude, while also having long-term synergy, really haven't been playing as much. They're kind of rusty. And they play exactly the same as they did 10 years ago. Like, you're not seeing anything new out of these guys really right now.
Actually, you know what? It's true. You can't run 10 years ago stuff anymore, which nothing has changed in the game. There's no reason why that would be the case, but it is absolutely the case that, the meta has shifted significantly, and it is no longer like some of the control builds that we ran, they just take too long to get set up, and we're not able to stay alive. And I don't think it's necessarily the case that people are better. I think it's that people are running more aggro and kind of more, a little more like anti-jank, like I was saying before, silver bullet type stuff. Because Return to Nature can go a long way toward leveling the playing field if your opponent has brought something bizarre.
Yeah. This is an interesting one, especially from Nathan, who wants to analyze all this, because it was actually expected that Jokers and Sadistic were going to stream this, and they didn't end up doing so. And so we don't have video evidence. They haven't really given too much of what happened in this series up. I didn't hear any, at least.
Yeah, not a whole lot.
So they might have some
let
kind
me
of
see if I can find in their let me see if I can find their thread real quick, because I think they did post. Somebody posted
Multitude
something.
did. I took the one Multitude. I don't remember if he sent it to me as a private message or what, but I ended up screen capping or just copying what he sent me.
It's pretty short
on there. Yeah.
It says round. Well, it doesn't even say who won the rounds in half of them. Like round 1, it just says Ghost and Multi using all-purpose and blazing decks.
Whoever starts it wins. So the first 2 are Ghost Multi, and the final 3 are all Joker Sadistic winning. So the winning team
I guess
is always
they won. Yeah, they won Palace and Highway, and then I guess Jokers and Sadistic turned the series at Panorama, at Lane. Strangely enough, I guess they won on Lane with Jackpot and Fire of Gehenna versus 2 jumpers and one who always has dash.
Let's just talk about that for a minute. So yeah, Jackpot, the Jackpot and Gehenna. I guess they were on the ones on Swords and Gehenna, but so the Jackpot arsenal ends up winning there. That's got to be
against 2 jumpers. Yeah. Against 2 jumpers, and then they won also. Like apparently they were heavily using Fire of Gehenna against Ghostweed on Lane. Who, I mean, when's the last time you saw him play Lane without a dash?
Yeah, so it's
but I think it's
never.
I think actually though the Swords and as I understand it, Swords and Gehenna are what Ghost and Multi were on, and Jokers and Sadistic were just spamming Jackpot together. Probably synced, side by side. That's how I understand that account. And look, we've all been there. Jackpot can be a very troublesome skill to deal with. But it always burns to lose.
Especially when you're using it yourself.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sometimes you use it yourself, and it's even worse for you.
Yeah, this seems to.
And then the last one signed, they just got the lasers.
Sorry.
Well, go ahead.
I just said this seems to speak to that preparation on Palace and Highway thing. Like all of the teams that we call the vets, the longtime teams, like there were no upsets on Palace, but once we got to these less played ones like Panorama and Lane, like their strategies, Flamesword and Fire Gehenna are good strategies, but they didn't have as much practice. It seems like.
Yeah.
Well, the question I want to ask from this series, I know it's a bit early to start throwing it all out there, but is Jokers and Sadistic a playoff team?
That's a tough one. Certainly they're a playoff team. Yeah, I thought you were asking if they go top 4.
You think top 8?
Absolutely, yeah. I think they go top 8. Yeah. I mean, I was just busting their balls in the beginning. I think they're a solid team, and I think that, they've got a good mix. I think one of the things with them that, in my mind, sets them apart a little bit is they're pretty unpredictable. Like a double jackpot build, I'm not looking for that in a tournament. I may not have packed my flash haul when I arrived at double jackpot, and so that may not go well for me.
I'm actually going to call not top 8. I think they're going to be like a
really
10th team.
Well, I'll tell you, they took down a pretty tough opponent in the first round. So I mean, they've already passed a pretty big test just
well, that's the question though. Now is
are they still there?
Because they do not have an easy second round. Multitude and Ghostweed. Do they make playoffs at this point?
I think they've got an uphill battle.
With a first round loss and their next set against Xanxus and Zexus, do they make the cut for playoffs?
Well, I mean, the plus side is, going 3-2 actually does give them a little bit of a cushion. I should say going 2-3. So even if they're 0-2 coming into round 3 through the series, but they've taken 2 games. Yeah, exactly. Or let's say they get another 2 against Xanxus Zexus. They're still probably like 8th-ish. You know what I mean? Like that's still maybe enough to put them on the border. And now, you look at who the matchups are going to be, and they're going to be against something, they're going to be against any of the other guys in the line with them right now. And so they're very likely going to be able to pull out a pair of wins to wrap up the tournament. And that would likely put them into the 6th, 7th spot, I would expect. I mean, of course, anything can happen.
Well, the interesting thing is only 6 teams are going to get cut first. And I would say pretty easily that even though it's only the first round, our bottom 4 teams are probably not going to make playoffs.
I mean, it depends.
You think?
So that's built prediction.
They certainly can. They certainly can make it without question. I mean, they've
got a really rough record to start with, and in my mind, those are 4 of the weaker teams in the tournament as well. Watch me go and drop a game to all 3 of them now that I've said that. But
interesting.
Filthy Sandals, newer team, Mimic and Mesrath, new to the tag tournaments. Dwayne and Jay, both newer players, newer to the scene. And
well, Jay's not,
I still see Monkey and Silver Saint as one of the weaker teams in the tournament, despite Nathan saying they would beat us.
We'll see. I mean, there's not too much to extrapolate on yet.
Well, so the point I was getting at with that is that with those 4 teams, you still have to eliminate 2 others. So who, if we're saying that the bottom 4 were to be in the bottom 6, who else do you put on that short list of being eliminated right now?
I'm putting Jokers and Ghosts.
So you think both of these teams will be eliminated?
I think both of them have a hard matchup coming ahead, and after that, I don't know if they'll be able to pull up.
Interesting.
Not just because they're bad, but just because Swiss also, just the way it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's still wide open. Like I said before, I honestly think that any of these 14 teams could make the cut. I think that, given the right set of circumstances, stars aligned, even a team that doesn't really deserve to be there could battle their way in and do it. 4 rounds is not that many, and a couple of hot series is all it takes. Really a 2-2 team is almost guaranteed a spot. So that's really the benchmark. If you can get to 2-2, you're almost certainly going to be in the the elimination portion of the tournament. So yeah, I don't quite feel comfortable saying even, for example, that the 4 teams that went 3-0 in the first round are necessarily safe. I mean, they're obviously strong teams, but they're there's no.
I think it's fair to say that IDO's going to be safe.
I don't know. There's no locks until next round. Then we're going to see locked in teams.
Yeah, but there'll be no IDs.
All right, so let's head into the next round then. The matchups.
Yeah.
First matchup, I'm following the list that you posted in the Facebook group. Will be Doomsday and Roaming Ronin versus Ghostface and Silent 79.
Yeah, let's.
Or do you want to go in reverse order?
Yeah, let's do it from the bottom up. So the first matchup
sure.
by that
Dwayne
and
Jay versus Monkey and Silver Saint.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So obviously, I think Monkey and Silver are a solid team. But having seen the video with Dwayne and Jay, I think they've got a shot there. I think that that's a toss-up series.
I think.
Well, so one of the interesting things is that I was going to say one of the interesting things we have here is that we have players from each of the teams that beat them. So how do you feel about Dwayne and Jay after that series, Jake?
I think Jay can take Monkey, and I think that's what makes the difference here.
Really?
I think Jay is a solid one-on-one player, and I think he will be able to outplay Monkey.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, Monkey, if you're talking about 1v1 players, the guy he made a deeper run in the 1v1 tournament than I think some people may have expected. He's done well. He's Silver Saint still, when we played the matches, he wasn't quite a weight around his ankles like he has been at other times, but that last match on Refinery. Well, he has been. He's been tough to play with at other times. He's gotten better, but on Refinery, I don't even know what he was doing with that Bravery decision deck. He had clearly it seemed like he drew a lot of aura, but after he Braveried, he managed to put himself down to 4 skills. That was right after he Braveried. He was at 4 skills. Either that's the absolute draw from hell. It was a bad arsenal, or poorly executed. I don't even know.
Well, let's be honest.
What happened there?
A Bravery build, any Bravery build, first of all, is going to be pretty heavily loaded up with aura because you want to make sure you can get down to that 7. And second of all, more so than perhaps any other type of deck in the game, is vulnerable to bad draws. If you find yourself making a couple of overwrites, you could find yourself down to 2 offenses after the Bravery. So I
would argue that that's a poor build on that part. Then if you don't build it to a way that you have some versatility to it.
It's whether you're going for quicker, more aggressive, or you're going for safer with more options once you do Bravery. That's kind of the whole arsenal.
Yeah. Yep, and you can't have it both ways. You really do have to. It's funny. Doom used to run a Bravery deck. I'm sure you guys remember, and I remember he would frequently, when he Braveried, be at 4 or 5 skills. It happened routinely, and it's because he was so completely overloaded on aura because he wanted to make sure that absolutely as soon as that Bravery showed up, he was ready to fire it. So it's it's about just trimming down variance as much as he could, and then just come charging out. He knew that the post Bravery spawn was going to give him the hand he needed to go out and do what he needed to do.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty rough matchup for them. If you'd asked me last week who I would predict to win to this match, I would have said immediately Monkey and Silver Saint. After the first week's matches and seeing Dwayne and Jay put up a fight versus Reborn Guinan and playing the matches versus Monkey and Silver Saint, I'm really torn at this point.
Yeah.
So what would you say you guys' predictions are?
I'd take Monkey Silver.
I'm going to do 3-2 Dwayne and Jay.
What's your match record, Nathan?
Me, terrible. I didn't even count it because it's so depressing.
No, I was saying, what do you say?
What do I think?
Their record
I think 3-2. I think this is going to be a good match.
Okay.
3-2. I think I'm going to have to go with Monkey and Silver Saint 3-2. I'd like to see them redeem themselves.
So
that's cold-blooded.
So the next one is Sandal and Filthy versus Mimic and Mesrath. And I'm going to give something bold here. Sandal is, in my opinion, I look up to him as someone who knows this game well, skills in and out, a deck builder. I think he's going to have some crazy builds for this week. I think he's going to be full-on in tournament mentality. I think he's going to know the stakes, and he's going to build something that just... Mimic and Mesrath are pretty straight-laced. I don't think they're going to see it coming.
He is a true student of the game.
I played against him before he played his first matchup against Gotrix and Silent 79, and they had some builds like that, and for whatever reason they did not bring any of them out in that first set. They actually played all 5 games, even though it was a 3-0, just for fun afterwards, And not in any single one of those 5 games did they really bring out any of the crazy stuff that I'd seen them doing before that. So we'll have to see whether they have the confidence in those builds to bring them out in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
If they have the confidence to bring them out in the second round, I predict a win for Filthy Sandals, 3-2. But if they don't, if they play it vanilla like they did against Gotrix and Silent 79, I think Mimic and Mesrath take the series pretty easily.
Yeah, I feel this is a tough one to predict because Mimic Mesrath are a complete cipher to me. I don't know really anything about them. I've never played them, I don't think. And I might have played Mesrath a couple of games at one point, but I don't have any kind of sense of who they are, what their team is about. And their first round match is against Doom, and so you can't really gauge anything from that either. I do think that Sandal and Filthy, have the ability to put together a good run, just like anyone does. And so I guess I would take them 3-2, but that's kind of just a dart,
What about you, Gannon?
Like I said, I'm gonna go like 3-1 Sandal. Like it won't. I don't think it's gonna be like even, but if my prediction that he gets the confidence to use those builds, that's where I'm going with it.
Yeah. So the next one working our way up would be Math and Ryder against Esper 51 and Evolution. That's a brutal match for both teams because these are two, solid teams, I would say, who had every business being on the top of the first week, who happened to run in the case of Ryder and Math, me and Wolf, who were able to beat them, and Xaxis in the case of Esper 51 and Evolution. I kind of think Esper 51 and Evolution are going to win that game. And again, I'm just going to call it a 3-2. I'm not sure. I think these are all good matches that could just about every one of them go either direction.
This is one of two.
I think it's going to be really. Sorry, go ahead.
This is one of 2 matches. I'm going to get to the second one later. That I think is literally a 50-50. I think it is straight up like Math and Esper are both good boxers, and Will and Evolution are both good thinkers. And you're going to see like some silly arsenals. You're going to see some like aggressive arsenals, and like it could go either way.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think it's kind of similar to what you predicted, but I'd say there's a thinker and a boxer on each team. Will tends to, try and work on the more gimmicky type decks and be a little bit more of a cerebral player, not as mechanically sound as some of the other players in the tournament. And Math is, just untouchable half the time. He's almost impossible to hit. And Esper 51 is like the jumper version of that. He's super tough to hit. He's always got a blazing bullet, and he's always got a heat inside like the first 4 skills. He's going to be there every single time. And whereas Evolution is the cerebral player of that half. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting matchup. I will say that I think I would favor Esper 51 and Evolution in this matchup unless Math and Will can patch up their weaknesses.
Do Math and Will both cartwheel?
Will plays a jumper.
Okay.
They changed, actually. I believe there was a switch between games 3 and 4 for us. I want to say that Will changed from I couldn't say which direction. There was a character change going into game 4 that we both noted.
He normally plays Gain. He plays one of the Gain sisters as a jumper, but I think he can cartwheel. I just don't think he does it that often.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think that's exactly what it was. I think he cartwheeled on City, and then... is that right? No, we didn't play City. I'm sorry. I think he cartwheeled in game 3 and switched to Gain for game 4. Was the change we both noted, which made us wonder if we were going to see something like a jackpot combo or something like that.
I'm going to give it the small lean towards Esper Evolution, like a 3-2. Like, Evolution just spent a whole week thinking about how to mess up a cartwheeler's day. And if Math is taken out, honestly, and they don't have the boxing, I don't think Will can, 1v1 Esper. So...
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, if Evolution neutralizes Math, then I think it's pretty much game over.
Yeah. So the next series is Xaxis versus Ghost and Multi... I'm sorry, did you give a prediction on the last one?
I said Esper and Evolution. I don't know if you gave a prediction yourself.
Yeah, no, I did. I took them as well. So all 3 of us had that as the 3-2. Xaxis versus Ghost and Multitude. This is another of these brutal, just, middle of Swiss pack type of matches that neither team is probably thrilled to be involved in right now. But I think that the worst series beatdown that the Wolf and I have taken since the reboot was against Xanxus and Zexus. Those two, when they get on a roll, can just be overwhelming, and they've got a pretty good variety of builds they can come with. So I still consider them to be one of the biggest threats in the tournament, and so I think that Ghost and Multitude have a real stiff hill to climb here.
Well, I think this is a really interesting matchup too, because this is basically like it sounds kind of weird saying old blood versus new blood, but like the old tournament blood with Ghost, like the old tournament top 3 blood, Ghost and Multitude, they're usually a top 4 team, anything they enter in back in the day, versus Xanxus and Zexus, who I would say are probably a top 3 team right now, even though they never played back in the day. And so it's kind of like the old versus the new. Well, they didn't play.
Wait a second. They didn't play in
the tournaments as much. They didn't play in the tournaments.
Yeah, I think they might have done one. So the old names of those two were, is it Crazy Shot or Crazy Sniper?
No, that's
99?
Rodin.
Right. So it's the other one, right? Crazy. Shit, I don't have the list in front of me. It's
At
Crazy.
some point, we should probably confirm this with them,
4BL.
whether or not it is.
Yeah, I know for a fact.
The point being, they didn't really play in tournaments as much, but Ghost and Multitude, were pretty much top 3, top 4 in most of the tournaments they entered. So it is kind of like, old top 3 versus new top 3. If Ghost and Multitude show up with some actual prep, change up their playstyle. At the same time, Xanxus and Zexus may not know how they play that much anyway, because they haven't been online that much for the Xanxus and Zexus to see it.
True. Yeah, I'm sorry. So the old gamer tags were Crazy Sniper 99 and JR Smoke B4L. Those are the two. Which I certainly have. I've got quite a few games against them logged with me and Wolf back when I used to track all the games we played, but I don't know whether they competed in the tournaments or not offhand.
Yeah.
Xanxus he keeps saying that he's never played in any of the tournaments before, so
gotcha. Okay.
Been interesting. Yeah, he said the 1v1 tournament that I hosted a few weeks back was the first tournament he's played in for Phantom Dust. One of the other things that I think is interesting, I just want to touch on with Xanxus and Zexus, and I mentioned earlier just about some of the other teams that are new to tournaments, is I think there's we touched on it before when we were talking about iDoom in the previous podcast, that a lot of these players, like iDoom, tend to show up in a big way when it comes tournament time. You play against them in a regular match, and it's just nothing quite the same as when they turn the key.
Yep.
Right? Will we all agree on that for some of these teams?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what I see with some of these new teams like Xanxus and Zexus, I think might be an interesting example here, is they haven't really had that difference. Right? Because they haven't really been in the tournaments. So the height of their competitive play is whenever another competitive team joins their room, like whenever Nathan and Wolf joined their room and had a real struggle against them. Whereas Nathan and Wolf, as somebody I've played against many times, they're playing at like 60, 75% usually when they're doing these kind of, settings like that. But they show up a lot harder when you play them in the tournament. Don't underestimate Nathan and Wolf or Doomsday, Guinan, players like that. They show up once they actually get in there in the tournament. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see that, because I think Xanxus and Zexus in these pickup games have been playing at basically their maximum. I'm interested to see if they can take it further, or if that's really, the maximum of what they have to offer. Even if that is the maximum, I think they still make playoffs, but it'll be interesting to see if they remain a top 3 team as we go forward.
Yeah, this matchup, I honestly, like last round, if you said second round would be this, I'd say it's close. Ghost and Multitude, I was worried that they didn't have they weren't changing up, they didn't have the practice, the rest was on. They still haven't proven it to me. So I'm feeling like we're going to go 3-1. I think Xanxus and Zexus, will take it, but they're still both good players on both sides, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Personally, I want to believe in the old blood. I'm going to say 3-2 for Ghost and Multitude.
Well, I'm going to do a bold one here and take a 3-0 on Xanxus Zexus. I think they sweep.
Ooh.
I don't think it's that crazy. I think it can happen.
Yeah.
I have to say I don't think it's that crazy either, even though I predicted Ghostweed and Multitude to win the match. If they don't show up with some real preparation, then yeah, I think it could easily go 3-0. But if they're willing to put in some prep time and show up ready to play, I think they could pull out the series.
Yeah.
They're both fantastic players.
So the next one is my series against Jokers and Sadistic Soul. So I will abstain from any prediction here.
Well, we talked a fair bit about Jokers and Sadistic Soul. Some of it was trash talk, some of it was real. A lot of experience playing together. Really interesting team. They apparently have a couple interesting strategies, running a lot of jackpot on lane. Against Nathan and Wolf, it's going to be interesting because they're both teams that come in with a lot of prep, come in with creative arsenals, and I think it'll be pretty heavily dependent on who outthinks the other coming into the match.
I have a strong feeling that so both of these teams are synergy teams. We're talking about literally blood between them. You know what I mean? So we've got family. This is Game of Thrones level of kind of.
All right, who's the Lannisters? We need to establish that first. Who is the Lannisters?
We're gonna find out. But Jokers and Sadistic, if I gave them 100% on synergy, I feel like they play at a casual level too much, and I don't know if they can bring it to a tournament level. And Nathan and Wolf have the experience, and they know the kind of decks they need to be able to do that. I don't think Jokers and Sadistic will have that. I mean, I just don't think it'll go as far.
Yeah, if I had to say, I've seen Nathan and Wolf practicing a lot, and very cerebral team. I would have to say Nathan and Wolf probably take this as well.
I'm going to give it a 3-1 Nathan.
Oh, great. I will say I was relieved. This was one of the ones that had to be seeded, and I was the two possibilities for us were them or Xanxus Zexus, and Wolf and I were both pleased when the headline put us on Jokers and Sadistic. Again, not that they're a good team, but
just
Xanxus
the one you'd rather
are definitely
face.
one of the. They are the ones we'd rather face in this particular round. Yes.
Yeah.
So the next series is. Oh, geez. I guess so. For the final, it didn't even occur to me. You guys, of course, are playing each other.
Wait,
let's save that for last.
Reagan, I need a record for this match. What do you think?
Wait, for Nathan and Jokers? I'd say 3-1 Nathan.
Okay.
And Wolf.
All right. Before ours, the next one's Gotrix and Idoom, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So Gotrix and Silent versus Idoom and Roaming Ronin. We've got some
right.
old school players on both teams. Good players.
Yeah.
Lots
Basically,
of history.
Is it the silent sacrificial lambs or the silent sacrificial goats?
Silent goats and a Doom Ronin.
Yeah. I think, if I remember correctly, I think Doom has lost a sum total of 2 games. I don't believe he's ever lost a series in competitive play. And I don't think he's going to be adding to that number.
He lost a series to you guys in the finals once.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Or it was in the semis. He lost a series to you guys in the semis once.
Yeah. It's been a long time. But he's just an outstanding player. I don't think this is going to be a close series, unfortunately. I think Goat and Silent are both very strong players, but I think they've, they're facing the toughest team. Although I have to say this, I'm definitely rooting for Gotrix. I want to see him win.
I'm rooting for Gotrix. Any damage he can put onto the Immortal helps us later.
Goat's been playing really strong. He has a really good come and bring it for tournaments. But
yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of Ronin lately and talking to him. I played with him. I played with both of them, him and Doom. We had a match not too long ago. But Ronin has come keeping all the personal level out of it. Ronin used to do a lot of play with Jokers and Sadistic. He doesn't really anymore. He's been playing almost exclusively with Doomsday, and it shows. He is being pulled up.
He's a lot cleaner.
He is. I've seen him play so much better than I ever used to, and he was never bad, but it's coming out, and I think he is nowhere near a drag him down player at all. And I think that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, he may not be the best partner that Doom has played with in a tournament, but he's definitely not, I'd say, either the worst or, full on negative pulling Doom back. Like he's a solid support. Like he's a solid second mate to iDoom right now. Yeah. So yeah, I say they probably take the series. I'm gonna give Gotrix a pity 3-1.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Gotrix a goose egg. I mean, I'm hoping for him though. I hope I'm real wrong.
Just wait for his next call out. If he wins one match when he's streaming these, you better believe he's going to be crowing about it.
Honestly, like you get to remember that Gotrix picked up Silent as a sub really late on, and they still
That's true.
That match. I feel like with a week of it, I'm gonna go 3-2 Doomsday. Like I think it will be pretty close.
Ooh.
All right.
And I mean,
you realize that's like closer than any series they even played against us back in the day. I don't think we ever even went 3-2 with them.
I think that while Doom is still one of the mechanically best players, I think if other people move faster with the meta, they can outpace him.
Yeah. Yeah, although, that said, in Doom's defense, I actually think he's got... I think he's always been really, really good at reading the meta as well. I don't think that he's just a mechanics player. I actually do think that he's ahead of the game a lot of the time in terms of what to build. And I think that, like I said in the last video, I think that his extremely stripped down, dupe-filled decks, which is to say that he would have multiples of the particular skills he wanted to be using rather than a loose affiliation of related skills. It reminds me of the type of things you see in like high-level competitive builds of Netrunner or Magic decks. I feel as though that particular mode of stripping away the fat and getting it down to just the stuff you're needing and being able to force the issue, that classic thing of being the one asking the question and the other team needs to respond. He does that. But Christ almighty, we have spent a lot of time talking about how awesome Doom is. Right. Well, so Doom, I think you're actually going to lose this if you listen to
Please pick me for your next tag partner, Doom.
Gotrix is such a wild card. Like, honestly, I think Gotrix will pull out something we've never seen before. I think he's both very capable and very interested in changing things up. He is not going to play a parallel game to Doom. He is going to go at an angle.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
Well, and the next one is going to be weird because technically, usually the format we go with, only one person gets to talk about this match.
Yeah, so that's going to be me. So this is you two knuckleheads playing each other, and I think that in both cases, I having watched the videos that Gagnon put up, I was very impressed with how cohesive their and systematic their process was. And similarly, I was very impressed when I played Davio the other night. So I think I would have called this, Tokyo Gagnon a week ago, pretty comfortably, but I don't know anymore. I think this is going to be a real tough series. I have a feeling that this may be the other one that Gagnon was talking about in terms of a pure coin flip, because this is a really, really tough matchup with two teams that really know each other inside and out. So I think that I think it's going to be a real tough matchup. I think I am going to give it, in this case, to make up for my errors last week, to Bragan Davio. I'm going to call Bragan Davio 3-2.
I'll give some commentary, but I don't think I'll give
a good man
because it's not. I
don't think you should. Yeah.
But one thing to note is if you look at my history of who I've played with in a tournament, it will be Bragan, Davio, and Tokyo, which gives me, in particular...
You did enter one tournament with Smide once.
That's true. But that
I think you got knocked out in the first or second round, but you did enter with him.
But in this case, yes, and Matt's a great guy. In this case, I know all of the moving pieces really well, and Bragan knows me like the back of his hand. I'll give him that. And Davio knows me pretty well. We haven't played much since we came back, and I don't think my playstyle is completely in sync with before. But what I think that might change this is I'm going to say that Bragan has a very large misconception of murder, and I think he will read him wrong. That's what I'm saying out of this one.
All right. I like that. What about you, Bragan?
I think the only person getting murdered is murder. Can't have this match without a little trash talk.
Yeah. All right. Well, that actually wraps up all of the matchups, I think.
Yeah, and I think the last topic we were going to cover was if anybody wanted to change their top 4. I don't think Guinan actually got his top 4 into the previous podcast. If you want to remind us who yours were.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had connection issues last week. It was Xbox's fault. I'm pretty sure this is my top 4 last week, and I'm going to give it again.
And remember, you're not allowed to put yourself.
Not allowed to put myself?
Not allowed to put yourself.
Okay. So, I think...
It's funny. I didn't know that was a rule. I thought we had all just elected independently not to do so.
Okay, well... So, last week...
Well, I mean, it seems really crass, even if it wasn't a rule. Right. I'm totally top 2.
Last week, you were surprised when I didn't put Ghost in there, and I think that kind of followed up. I think I'm going to see Xanxus Zexus and Doomsday. Those are the easy ones, I think. I know they're really strong. I think I'm going to give them a lot of credit, and when you listen to this, you darn well better show up. I think I'm putting Brigand and Gotrix.
Really?
Right.
And it's not that I don't think there are other strong teams. I just think that when we cut the top 4, or we're going to cut to top 8, but when we see the top 4 seeds, I think we'll have the best showings in Swiss. I think Gotrix.
Okay.
I think Gotrix will be adapted to in the top 8 when we do single or double elimination, and maybe Brigand as well, because these are 2 players who, maybe you have to get a read on their meta, but I think through the Swiss they'll get some surprises.
Yeah, I agree about Doomsday and Xanxus Zexus. I think it's I would consider them to be the top 2 teams.
You previously also said Ghost and Multitude.
I sure did, and I believe Monkey Silver was my final pick, right?
Yep.
So I actually, so my other 2 picks besides Xanxus Zexus and iDoom went with a combined 2 and 6 records, 2 matches. But
congratulations on your prediction skills.
Yeah, and unfortunately, to make matters even worse, Ghost and Multitude drew Xanxus Zexus in their second round. So they're actually, not only did they lose their first round 2-3, but they've got a really tough opponent in the second round as well, which I think is likely to drive them out of the top 4, even though I do think they will make the top 8. I don't know what to say about Monkey Silver. I may have just been a bad call that far about, or maybe they're going to turn it back around. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick with Monkey and Silver. I think they are going to.
You think Monkey and Silver can turn it around?
And Monkey and Silver are going to turn it around, go 3-1 through the remainder, and be top 4. And I'll give it to actually Gagnoon and Murder. I think are going to be the other top 4 team to add in as my replacement team. With the same caveat, you guys better not make me look stupid this week, because virtually half the people I've told I've said we're going to win this series.
I'm getting the Nathan.
I can't. So. I'm really surprised you're doubling down on Monkey and Silver Saint. I gotta say.
I am. Yeah,
losing to you doesn't mean they can't do it. I'm going to be honest.
They're going to come back angry. I think they're going to come back hot, and they're going to turn it around.
I don't want to paint them as one of the worst absolute bottom teams in the tournament, but they weren't coming into this. They were not somebody I would have ranked top 4. I probably wouldn't have even predicted them to make playoffs even before I played them. They're a solid team, but they're not really anybody I expected to make a deep run.
Well, obviously, I reserve the right to adjust my prediction after the next round is played.
After the next round, I think. If I remember correctly, my prediction was Murder Mastodon, Reborn Guinan, Nathan and Wolf, Xanxus Zexus, and Doomsday and Ronin. Yep. And I'm still pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Who is your dark horse to break into the top 4?
They're one of my core picks too. I mean, Monkey Silver probably still qualifies in that regard, but right? Can they be on both lists for me? I don't know. Honestly, and this is a bit of a long shot. I think it's conceivable that we could see a big run out of Esper and Evolution.
That's who I was.
I think they've got a tough match this week. Is it really? I think they've got a tough match this week.
That was who I was thinking too. They showed some impressive synergy taking a 5-game series to Xanxus and Zexus.
That's exactly right. If Zexus wins authoritatively and ends up 3-0 through the series, let's say, and they kick up into the upper echelons of the Swiss ranking, it's conceivable that Esper and Evolution could win, 3-1 or something against Math and Ryder, and then face middle range opponents that they could, continue stacking the blocks on and end up with a fourth round opponent who's maybe not as tough as some of the people in the top, at the very top, and thereby slip into the top 4, right? To get into like 4th place from a third round match against, I don't even know who it would be, but just someone who's not as nasty as Doom or Xanxus Zexus. Because obviously they're getting, Xanxus Zexus off the list already.
What's funny
they can't play them again in Swiss.
When we think about this team, by the way, until very recently, they did not even have reasonable communication. Evolution was a jerk. He didn't have a mic. I'm calling you out. You didn't have a mic. You bought it, though.
They literally played their matchup versus Xanxus and Zexus without Evolution having a mic.
So
I don't think most people realize
that.
They had zero communication in that match.
Could he hear?
And they still went to 5 games.
Yeah, he can hear.
And they almost took the series.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Well, and Esper 51 doesn't even talk that much, so it's not even confirmed for me whether or not Esper 51 was even talking, because half the time, if somebody else isn't talking, he doesn't talk. Yeah, he just doesn't put his mic in. I don't think he likes to talk as much.
I can see Evolution.
Maybe he has kids or something.
I have a tangent here, and I'm going to keep this super brief. The Wolf and I were playing a couple nights ago. This is not the same as the Davio night, but we were playing a few nights ago, and my controller went dead. Batteries died in the middle of a game. So I grabbed new batteries, I popped them in, I got hooked back up, and we started playing again, continued playing that match, and continued playing for another like 6 or 8 matches. And I was never able to get my mic working again. For whatever reason, I tried turning off the controller. It was late, so we were like, well, let's just play one more. I'm saying to him on text messages on the phone. And we ended up playing an entire series, like a whole way through with zero communication whatsoever. And it was really fascinating. And I feel like I learned a lot just from doing that for the first time, maybe ever, about like, what are the important like data points to keep track of, and like the positionally, just being much more mindful of what Wolf had in his hand by color, since there was no ability to talk.
You learn a lot. Yeah.
So actually, yeah, it was actually a really interesting exercise. Just going back to, again, whether or not it's even feasible to win a series like that is another matter. But I do think it's a useful exercise.
Yeah, and they have that exercise, and now they have communication on top of it.
Right.
They have communication on top of it. They've shown remarkable synergy. I think if Evolution, keeps brushing up some of his brawling mechanics, like I think one of the interesting sub stories that we haven't touched on yet is that there's some players that I think people may have previously ranked as B tier back in the day rather than A tier, who've really stepped up since the reboot. And I'd say Esper 51 is definitely one of those players. He was somebody that he was a good player back in the day, but if I drew him in a tournament, which I think I did once or twice, he wasn't somebody that I really worried about. But right now, the last time I played him, he wiped the freaking floor with me. I think I went something like I went like 0-9 against the guy. He was just taking a hot dump on me.
It's funny.
And of course, the other thing to note here,
go on.
I don't know if we mentioned it before. Just to make it clear, Evolution is also a replacement. He's the other replacement player. He was Wader is the name of who's one of the highest ranked players in the game.
Esper 51 replaced Orwader.
That's what. No, it's the other way around. Esper 51 was already in. Evolution replaced Orwader.
No. Right? Evolution and Orwader entered, and then Esper 51 replaced Orwader.
Okay. So I had it backward in my record. I'll have to change that. Got it. Okay.
But yeah, so replacement, and they came.
So what were you gonna say?
A tangent to your tangent, by the way. Like a little while earlier, I think it's in the video that I'm playing for this talk. I was playing with Ronan, and he had to go AFK for like 3 minutes. So I think they had gameplay. This was earlier, obviously, of like 3 minutes of having literally my partner standing still. We still won that game.
Was that against Esper 51?
I don't remember, but I do remember that it was they were really mean to him while he was AFK. Naughty opponents.
That's a thing that happens. Although that's also a situation you can control quite a bit because you can scoop them up and just. you can walk with them. You can grab them and scoop them up, and if you're able to stay away from them for a few minutes, you can preserve his recovery for quite a long time. Yeah, I figured.
Any last points before we get done with this?
No, I don't really have anything else.
No, I think that wraps it up for us. I'm really interested in several of the matches, especially the Owen, the teams that got 3-0'd, those bottom teams right now. I'm interested to see, who had a bad week and who belongs at the bottom of the standings.
Yeah.
Besides this video, which we're going to do a new one each week for these, also look forward to lots of streams and recordings. We're going to see like about half of these games, I think, being recorded. They're going to be either in the Phantom Desk group on YouTube. I'm putting mine up along with some other videos we're doing. So just keep an eye out for this content. Especially in the Facebook group and on YouTube. We'll have make sure you subscribe to all these guys and you can see what's going on.
Yep.
All right.
All right, then. Good deal. That's it. Thanks a lot for joining us on the round 2 preview of Phantom Dust Tag Team Tournament, whatever this would be called, podcast thread. I don't know.
Yeah.
At any rate, thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next week.